This video is sponsored by Normandy 1998. An hour has passed since Red's rematch with Koga, and while the ninja was able to escape justice along with the admin who had led the radio tower takeover, the remaining 24 Team Rocket grunts have been safely apprehended, making the mission a rousing success for the task force, and their biggest bust to date. However, even in the face of this, Red is still not satisfied, staring obsessively into the blinking red dot on the screen of Lance's tracker as it comes to a stop above Mahogany Town. Then, without any forewarning, it vanishes, right as it reaches a small souvenir shop. Worriedly, Red tells Lance that he thinks the tracker's gone dead, though when the young man recounts what happened, the Dragon Tamer disagrees, stating that it's more likely the shop has some way of jamming the transmission, which suggests that it is Team Rocket's base, though he can't see how they'd be able to run their operation from somewhere so small. Bluntly, Red replies that he can, asking if one of the ways to block a signal is to go underground, to which Lance nods, asking what his colleague is thinking. Still in that factual tone, Red explains how Team Rocket had an entire subterranean base under the Celadon Game Corner, with it being probable they'd do the same thing here to avoid being noticed. Overhearing this, Handsome agrees with Red, stating they should go and investigate, though first they need to debrief with the head of the task force, as ultimately, what they do next will be his call. Heading up to the station manager's office, Red, Handsome, and Lance use the wall-sized video phone there to contact their leader, with the screen quickly flashing to life to reveal Senior Inspector Nano of the International Police. In his lazy drawl, Nano asks for their report, a definite air of disinterest to the way he slumps in his chair, though having called him enough times to know that this is just his way, the trio give a rundown of the operation, along with the areas in which they succeeded and failed. For the most part, Nanu seems unbothered that they were unable to catch Koga or the leader, with him going so far as to give Lance a gruff nod of acknowledgement for his quick thinking in planting a tracker, though when he hears they have already managed to identify the primary Team Rocket base, his red eyes twinkle with something resembling intrigue. Seizing the initiative, Handsome then speaks up, suggesting they should mount a full-scale raid on the base to make sure the enemy cannot slip through their grasp. But with a wave of his hand, Nanu calls this stupid. Going in water guns blazing will only give Giovanni and his cronies advanced warning that they're coming, so if they want to play this smart, they should apply a lighter touch, sending a small stealth unit rather than a full force. Saluting humbly, Handsome agrees with his superior, while in a voice full of passion, Red states that he'll go, since if Giovanni is really there, he's the only one strong enough to beat him. With a sigh, Nanu replies they can sort out who's going on their own, since he doesn't really care, though it should be no more than 2 people, and they should travel by foot as much as possible, since it'll be less conspicuous and allow them to blend in with all the other trainers. Testily, Red expresses dissatisfaction with the idea of slowing down and traveling by land, since it might give the bad guys a chance to escape, but in a relaxed drawl, Nanu counters that right now, Team Rocket's guard will be raised after tonight's failure, and they'll be in fight or flight mode, meaning if they even get a whiff of something else going wrong, they're liable to scatter, and it may be impossible to ever pin them down again. This way it'll seem like everything's okay, giving them a chance to build their confidence back up, and be lulled into a false sense of security, so that when the task force eventually do close the noose around the crooks, they'll never see it coming. Though he still doesn't love the plan, this at least makes sense to Red, with him agreeing to follow Nanu's instruction, while in far more respectful tones, Handsome and Lance thank the senior inspector for his time, before cutting communications. With this settled, the only question is who will accompany Red to Mahogany Town, though this is hardly much of a dilemma, as Lance immediately volunteers for the assignment. While he and Red have not fully forgiven each other for what happened before Koga arrived, they are both intelligent enough to know that this job will likely require a lot of firepower, and as it stands, that makes the two of them best suited for the role. Wishing the pair luck, Handsome informs them that he will wait for news of their progress here in Goldenrod, and as he, Red, and Lance lock eyes, they all have the same thought, that if all goes well, this may be the last time they meet as comrades under the task force banner. Setting off by foot, Red and Lance make their way up Route 35, doing their best to appear as a pair of regular trainers, with Lance even gushing about his fictitious victory at the Goldenrod gym, in case any Team Rocket spies are listening. Red, on the other hand, does not bother with such theatrics, instead simply adopting a brisk, purposeful walk, his eyes locked squarely on the road ahead, which will lead him to his ultimate goal. Even with Nanu's explanation, this means of travel is interminably slow, with Red growing frustrated each time Lance insists they make camp for the night, as if it were up to him, he would keep walking all night, so long as it would bring him 1 inch closer to Giovanni. Unfortunately, it is not up to him, and so when forced to stop, he does the only thing that can calm his agitation: train. This at least is familiar, with his Pokemon proving they are just as devoted to him as ever through the effort they put into honing themselves for this final confrontation. In fact, so strong is their zeal that more than once Lance has to insist they hold back, since if anyone is watching, the sheer power of Red's Pokemon might be a dead giveaway as to who he is. This only adds to Red's frustration, with him growing mutinous and taciturn the longer they're on the road, so that roughly a week later when they finally reach Mahogany, he is practically begging for a fight. Thankfully, he does not have to look very far to find one, as when he and Lance step foot into the little souvenir souvenir shop which serves as the front for the base, they spot the rocket leader from the radio tower working behind the counter, suggesting he has received a rather steep demotion for his failure in that operation. Catching sight of the pair, the rocket makes no attempt to hide who he is, instead bolting towards what can only be assumed as the hidden entrance so he can warn his cohorts. Though being faster, Red wastes no time in bringing out Gara, with the sea serpent wrapping tightly around the mook to immobilize him before letting a truly terrifying roar that sees him faint from fear. With this first obstacle dealt with, the next Red and Lance must confront is getting into the base. However, thanks to the terrified rocket showing them where it is a simple matter for Gara's hyper beam to blast a hole in the wall, revealing a ramp leading deep underground. Leaping onto the water type's back, Red commands Gara to press onwards, with the atrocious Pokemon hissing fiercely as it slithers down the ramp, while slightly behind them, Lance brings forth Dragonite, with the Draconic duo following suit. Inside the base, alarms are blaring, no doubt a result of their rather forceful entrance, though in that moment, neither Red nor Lance care, as they advance down a narrow corridor lined with Persian statues, until they are jumped by a group of 6 grunts. Cockily, the grunts tell the pair of trainers to give up, since they've got them 3-1, though in a determined growl, Red retorts that it wouldn't matter if they had him 50-1. He is getting to Giovanni. The only question is whether he has to crush these losers first. He then orders another Hyper Beam, and as the orange blast flies at the rockets, they all leap in different directions to avoid being disintegrated, clearing the path for Red and Lance once more. Learning from this mistake, the next contingents of grunts sent to stop the intruders comprise 10 members, though this time it is Lance who stops them, ordering Dragonite to close in and use Twister to send the villains flying. Bellowing its understanding, Dragonite does so, taking special pains not to harm its opponents beyond what is necessary. The courtesy Red is no extent to the next group, as when a dozen grunts attempt to stand in his way, he simply has Gara barrel through them, while telling Pika to shock any who get back up. By now, Red, Lance and their Pokemon have reached the end of the long corridor, coming to a stop outside a large metal door. Taking his cue from Red, Lance has Dragonite bust down this one, with the Cantonian champ following him into the room after returning Gara with his thanks. Stepping inside, the pair find what appears to be a large generator room, though this is not what turns their stomachs, as when their eyes fall on the base of the generator, they see what Team Rocket are using as a power source. 2 rows of exhausted-looking Electrode, who have been locked into painful-looking machines that are clearly draining their power against their will. Rage and disgust bubbling up in him, Red orders Lance to help him save the trapped Pokemon, before having Pika use Iron Tail to cut through the mechanical arm holding the first Electrode. Nodding, Lance does likewise, having Dragonite use Dragon Claw to slash at the metal bindings and cleave them into scrap, with the 2 trainers working in perfect synchronicity for the first time, as their joint love for Pokemon allows them to put aside their personality conflicts, at least for now. When the last Electrode is free, Lance gives them each a brief dousing with another vial of Mount Silver spring water to help them recover their strength, while Red urges them to get out of here as fast as they can, promising to keep Team Rocket distracted so they can escape. Warbling gratefully, the 6 Electrode then begin rolling back the way Red and Lance came, while above them, the alarms shut off at last. Briefly, Red and Lance think this is due to the base's power being cut, though alas, they are not so lucky, as a moment later, the voice of Giovanni booms out over the PA system. With a cruel chuckle, he taunts that Red never changes. Even in the midst of a war, he cannot bring himself to let Pokemon suffer. It is, and has always been, his fatal flaw. Furiously, Red yells back at the mobster to stop hiding behind his goons and come face him in person, though with another mirthless laugh, Giovanni retorts that the boy is in no position to be making demands. However, since Red has gone to all the effort of tracking him down, he'll tell him where he is. He's in his office at the very center of the base, where he'll be waiting for his young nemesis to arrive. That is unless he's still scared of him and his Beedrill from their last battle. Falling for this rather obvious bait, Red snarls that he's not afraid of anyone, and as if this was some sort of password, a door on the far side of the room opens, leading deeper into the base, with Giovanni stating that they will see about that, before his voice once again is replaced by the wailing of alarms. As Giovanni had no doubt hoped, Red does not spare a second thought as he dashes through the new door. While giving chase, Lance urges him to stop, stating this is obviously a trap. Still in that voice filled with hate for the Rocket Boss, Red retorts that he knows, but he doesn't care, since as the strongest trainer in the world, he'll just bust through whatever trap Giovanni has laid for him, and then he'll put him down like the mad Growlithe he is. Furiously, Lance yells that what Red's proposing isn't justice, it's cold-blooded murder, and that if he goes through with it, he'll be no better than Giovanni, just another crook for the task force to bring down. Ice filling his voice at this assertion, Red dares the Dragon Tamer to stop him if he really thinks he can, and with no unexpected arrival to halt their duel this time, Lance accepts, having Dragonite fly in front of Red to block his way, before telling it to use Twister. Having seen how effective this trick was against the grunts, Red leaps back just in time to avoid being spun into unconsciousness, while with a scowl, he tells Pika to help him out. Growling with just as much ferocity as Gara, Pika leaps from his trainer's shoulder, and delivers a powerful thunder, which makes the dragon Pokemon howl. Thanks to its dragon typing neutralizing the flying type's weakness, impervious to electricity, this is not a super effective blow, allowing Dragonite to withstand the hit and retaliate with a Dragon Claw, which strikes Pika head-on and makes the mouse squeak in pain as he is pinballed between the walls before landing at Red's feet. Determination in his voice, Lance begs Red to give up on his foolish quest for vengeance, but with a roar, Red refuses, telling Pika to get back up and use Iron Tail this time. Being immensely loyal to his trainer, Pika does so, rushing forward and uppercutting Dragonite with his steely tail, though this puts him right where Lance wants him, as with a grim finality, the Dragon Tamer orders Dragonite to use Hyper Beam on Pika, with the hope that he will not be too badly injured. At such close range, there is nowhere Pika can run, and so seeing only one option, Red tells his friend to meet the blast head-on with the thunder. At once, orange and yellow lights collide, with the dim passageway suddenly shining like the sun, though this is only short-lived, as when neither Pokemon is willing to budge, their attacks keep growing in power until finally they explode, sending massive ripples of force through the narrow corridor that knock both Red and Lance off their feet, as they try frantically to fan away the black smoke that has obscured their vision. In an attempt to clear this away, Lance tells Dragonite to use Twister again, though to this he gets no response, with the reason becoming clear a moment later when the two Pokemon come into view. Dragonite is unconscious, while a small distance away, Pika isn't faring much better, looking as though a strong breeze could knock him out too. Nonetheless, he is victorious, and as he scampers back onto Red's shoulder, the champ tells Lance to let him pass, since he doesn't want to hurt him or his Pokemon any more than he has to. Passionately, Lance refuses, returning Dragonite and readying another Pokeball, as he declares that he won't let Red do this, though with a sigh, the Cantonian demonstrates that he does not make empty threats, having Pika blast the Dragon Tame with Thunder to quickly render him unconscious, thus freeing up his way forward at last. Following the passageway to its end, Red finds a large reinforced metal door painted with a big red R, and figuring this must be his destination, he steps through. Inside is a spacious office, decorated tastefully in black leather, though in that moment, Red is not paying attention to the decor, his eyes instead being locked squarely on the man seated behind the desk, Giovanni. Rising to his feet, Giovanni reaches for a Pokeball, though refusing to let this monster use any of his tricks. Red cries for a Volt Tackle, his voice oddly high-pitched as he orders the move he developed for this very purpose. In a flash, Pika is gone from his shoulder, having become a yellow blur streaking towards Giovanni. Then, an instant later he is gone, having passed through the man at such velocity that the only thing which remains is a Pikachu-sized hole in his chest cavity. This is an unmistakably mortal wound, meaning no matter what comes next, Red has done it. He's saved the world from Giovanni, or at least, that is what he thinks, as when the mobster falls back into his chair, his shocked face begins to shift, losing its ninja camouflage to reveal Koga instead. At once, Red's stomach falls, and he runs to the ex-gym leader's side gasping that he didn't mean for this to happen, while already trying to think of ways to staunch the wound. However, as he had already concluded, this blow was a fatal one, with there being nothing he can do but watch as the light fades from the ninja's eyes, leaving Red alone with his guilt. Unfortunately, he is not left to grieve for long, as suddenly, a scream fills the room, and as Red looks down at the floor where Pika had landed, he sees him convulsing in evident agony. Like last time, these screams are interspersed with those horrible discharges, though now they are far more intense, with the skin around Pika's cheeks beginning to blister and burn under the power of the electrical overload caused by this fifth Volt Tackle. Frantically, Red attempts to recall his friend into his ball like last time, though in this he has no such luck, as the electrical interference caused by Pika's discharges renders the Pokeball all but useless, forcing Red to pick him up by hand. At once, Red feels heat and a painful tensing of his muscles, as if he has wrapped lightning itself in his arms, though refusing to abandon his buddy. He endures the pain, all the while muttering in a small trembling voice that he'll find a way to fix this. He promises. Then, a new voice speaks up, one full of malicious amusement, and as Red turns back, he sees an image of the real Giovanni projected on the wall, making him seem larger than life, as he sneers down at Red. From the looks of things, he is in some sort of helicopter high in the air, though where exactly the mob boss is means very little to Red at this moment. All that matters is that he's not here, and perhaps he never was, meaning once again Red has failed. Seeing the despair in the youth's eyes, Giovanni taunts that once again the foolish brat has fallen right into his trap, though, if it's any consolation, he has every confidence Red will not do so again. Heart sickness warring with venom in his tone, Red demands to know why not, to which the rocket boss replies that he has sealed the base and rigged it to self-destruct in 60 seconds, meaning this is the end for the ever-troublesome Red. He then continues that while it was rather galling to sacrifice Koga for this goal, he knows it was the smartest decision, as now he will be rid of the greatest threat to his ambitions, leaving him free to plot his next step towards total domination in peace. Furiously, Red refuses to accept Giovanni's victory, screaming that he will get out of this and stop him no matter what it takes. Though, with one last chuckle, the mobster replies that actually he won't, cutting the connection and revealing a countdown screen with only 45 seconds left. Knowing he's out of time, Red does the only thing he can, bringing forth Arrow and telling it to blow a hole in the roof with Hyper Beam, while he gets Lance, as despite his grudge, he's not about to let anyone else die who doesn't deserve it. Rushing down the corridor, Red uses free arm to hoist Lance onto his shoulder, while on the other, he holds Pika, who is still discharging, with this making the return trip to the office even harder, as he must now fight against both dead weight and painful muscle contractions. By now, the countdown is in its final 10 seconds, and recognizing that he quite literally does not have a second to spare, he pulls himself and his allies onto Arrow's back, with a fossil flyer shooting skywards, as just below them, an explosion rips through the base. However, Red and Co are not out of the woods yet, as through the hole Arrow has created comes a plume of flame, seemingly intent on claiming their lives, just as Giovanni had planned, and it is only by the skin of their teeth that they manage to avoid it, veering sharply to the left as soon as they are in the open air, while the flame continues shooting upwards, immolating the space they had just occupied. Letting out a sigh of relief, Red touches down, unable even to appreciate the irony that it was the Pokemon he got from Giovanni's old Amber, which saved him from the gangster's machinations. Instead, his focus is entirely on Pika, who has begun screaming again, with the young man digging frantically through Lance's belt for another vial of that healing water. Unfortunately, it seems the Dragon Tamer used the last of it on those Electrode, meaning if he wants to save his friend, he will need to get it from the source. However, as is always the way, nothing can be so simple, as when Red looks eastward to locate the mountain, he instead sees a helicopter bearing the trademark R of Team Rocket, having evidently wanted to see Red's demise firsthand. Having witnessed his survival instead, it now turns to flee, heading west towards the ocean in parts unknown, and as Red looks between it and Mount Silver, he is forced to make a terrible choice: save Pika or catch Giovanni. And that's where we'll leave things. Who did Red ultimately choose? What consequences came of this decision? And how did it impact the man he became? Find out as the journey continues.